everybody, Mike Beer here with your DRF race of the day for Thursday, November 16th. We're going to close out the Aqueduct card. Race number 9 is a maiden special weight, 9 furlongs on the turf course here for older horses, $85,000 purse, and we have a full field of 12 horses entered for this race. We'll take a look at that field right now. Kind of feels like pretty well matched. Favoritism could go to a few different horses. It feels like Chad Brown does have 2 horses in here. The number 4, Right to Win, certainly could lay claim to being favored in this race, making his 4th career start here after a bit of a layoff. Chad's other horses, the 9, Take Me to Jimmy, who was first off of a really long layoff in this race. He only ran twice last year as a 2-year-old, but might be a little bit better than he looks on paper. You know, certainly Todd Pletcher's, he has 2 in this race as well. His number 11, War Officer, 2 turf starts so far, paired up 74 Buyer speed figures hitting the board in both of those races. He could certainly take his share of money in here. Even the number 5, Heart and Soul, for trainer George Weaver. This is a horse who's making his 3rd career start on turf after showing speed in his most recent start at Keeneland going a mile. He's a horse who could easily take his share of money in here. Probably feels like Chad's horse will wind up going favored in this race, but it's not like he's a total standout on paper, so the money could go in a few different directions. We'll see how that all plays out. Let's get to the Timeform US pace projector, and you can see that the number 5, that Weaver horse, Heart and Soul, who did make the lead in his most recent start at Keeneland on turf, Timeform US believes that he will make the early lead in this race. Not that hard to argue with that. I mean, I feel like he's probably a horse who will go forward in this race. I don't know that he has to be on the early lead, and it's not like he went a blazing pace in that most recent start, but he could certainly make the lead in this race. I thought one of the other horses who could get forward, Timeform US doesn't have this horse anywhere near the lead, but the number 1, Scat 2 Tap, could be forward from his rail draw here as he goes second off the layoff with Joel Rosario taking them out. We'll see how aggressive they elect to get, because you only have to go back to the end of last year, last November, when this horse was still a 2-year-old, to get to a turf race from this horse that, I mean, if he could build on it here, could give him, a real chance to be a major player in this race. That day, he did make the early lead. He had a clear advantage in the stretch. He got run down by a Chad Brown favorite at the end of that race and wound up settling for second, but he earned a 71 Buyer speed figure. He ran fine that day. His form since then hasn't been great. They ran him on synthetic a few times, and that didn't really work out for him. His most recent turf start was not a good one at Keeneland way back in April, but that was against a good field at a big price, and his most recent start, he got rained off the grass. That was his first start for this trainer, Jorge Abreu. So he's got an inside post. He's got a little bit of speed. He's probably going to be a fair price in this race. I don't love him. I'm not going to try to make a super strong case for him. He does have that one race that would give him some kind of a chance in here, and he will have Lasix this time back on the grass. The number 2 is Pujol. Well, this horse went long in his career debut a couple of weeks ago here at the end of October. He did make the early lead in that race, and then when they came for him, he was no match. He was 95+1 that day. He'll be another big price in this race, and he's just hard to make a case for. The number 3 is Breeze. Trainer Shug McGahee sends this one out. Made his turf debut in his most recent start at Kentucky Downs. Didn't run great in that spot. Those races can be a little difficult to evaluate. I think he sort of wanted to see a little bit more out of him. However, his first 2 starts came on dirt. He didn't run well in those. And he just doesn't really have a ton of pedigree to make you think he's going to be a way better turf horse. They paid a good amount of money for this horse, but so far he's done very little on the track. He's by Flatter. They're not great turf horses. This dam hasn't been much of a producer at all. The dam did win on turf in her career, but she hasn't been a great producer. Didn't like this horse's pedigree. Don't like his first 3 starts. He should be a big price in here, though. Right to Win could be the favorite here, the first of the Chad Brown runners. There's plenty to like about this horse. He debuted early in the year at Gulfstream. Wasn't professional at all in that race. Looked like he just really needed it. His 2 subsequent starts up here in New York were both much better performances. The first of those going this distance at Belmont. He showed improved speed. He's in against Mondigo that day. Mondigo not only won that race, came back to win his next start, then placed in a grade 1 in his next start. This horse ran fine that day to be 3rd. He was also 3rd in his only other start in July when they dropped him back to a mile, but he faced Northern Invader that day, and he ran really well in that race. Maybe he was second best in that race, but he wound up having to settle for 3rd. Northern Invader, of course, 95 Buyer speed figure, blowing that field out, and he's a stakes winner now as well. So it feels like this horse is in a better spot here. He's Chad gave him a little bit of time after that most recent start. He comes back with blinkers on. Since this is the race of the day, you have the free formulator past performances. Click on Chad Brown's name in your PPs and look up the trainer stats for Chad with maidens and turf routes, first time blinkers, get the first time starters out of there. It's a really, really strong number. When he adds blinkers, it seems to be with intent, and it usually works. Irad Ortiz will also ride this horse for the first time. He's a major player in this race. Heart and Soul's the 5. Maybe he makes the early lead in this race. His turf debut, 2-back, came at Kentucky Downs. He didn't run well that day, but he got sort of lost in that race. I'm not sure that that's when you really want to hold against him. He wound up way back in the pack. He tried to make a run through the stretch, but he never really came close. He did run better in his most recent start at Keeneland. Here it is. We'll take a look at the replay. This is going a mile. Got a pretty easy early lead in this race, though. Didn't have to go fast, it didn't look like. He's pretty game through the stretch here. He's trying to hold on. He's no match for this closing winner, and he'll just get nailed for second by a pretty well-met first-time starter for trainer Graham Motion. So this is a good performance from Heart and Soul. And if he can take a little bit of a step forward here, maybe he's a really, really strong contender this race. I sort of have mixed feelings about him. I want to wait and see what kind of price he is, but I do think he's a major contender in this race. Triumphant Road is the 6 for trainer Eddie Barker. I like this horse's pedigree. I just don't like his races all that much. This horse got one started as a 2-year-old on dirt, and he just didn't run well at all that day. They came back on turf last year with him for 3 starts, and he didn't run that well in any of those races. At least I didn't think he did. 3 starts back, when you go to the first time they stretched him out at Saratoga last summer, he finished, a decent fit that day with a 74 Beyer speed figure. He wasn't beaten that badly, but I just didn't think that he ran any kind of great race in that spot. And then he came back for one final start here at the end of the year. Didn't do anything in a race where he got wired. In his only start so far this year, which was off of a long life, he lost his rider, so he didn't get to find anything out about him. I can only judge him off what he did last year, and while he does have that one start at Saratoga that makes him look competitive, I just don't really like this horse's races, and I wanted to look elsewhere. And here, the wild guess is the number 7. Trainer Barkley Tag will take over. This horse started out for Clement, made a couple of starts for Lisa Lewis earlier this year, and now he's in the Tag Barn. The most recent start was in a maiden $40,000 claiming race. He got to the lead that day. He was no match through the stretch with a 60 Beyer speed figure. He just has to run way better in the spot. He could get forward in here. Maybe the trip works out for him and he takes a step forward off the trainer change. But I don't. Another horse, I just don't really like his races. Nostalgic One is the number 8, the first of 2 in this field for trainer Todd Bletcher. He also has this horse also has a loss versus maiden $40,000 claiming horses at Saratoga this summer. Pletcher owns this horse and trains him, so I don't think that's that maiden 40, the drop in class there is some kind of big negative. But he didn't run great that day. He did get wired that day. The horse that was second was, 58-1 in that race, and this horse really couldn't get anywhere near him. He dead heated for third with Variable Cost. Variable Cost did come back to win his next start, but he won it with a surface switch in slow time. I don't know. This horse just, hasn't run that well. He did improve last time, but they took him to Kentucky Downs to do it, and they went 1.5 miles with him. So to me, that just makes that race a little bit hard to evaluate as well. He has improved with every start so far, so maybe he'll improve again and get the right trip in this race. But he's another horse I would just want a pretty big price if I was going to bet him. Take Me to Jimmy's the 9, the second for Chad Brown. 2 starts last year. The debut at Colonial Downs, where he just got beat as the favorite. He ran well that day. He lunged at the start, wound up way back early, and then made this crazy early run. Irad was over there to ride him. Made a big early run in that race, swept by the field, got to the lead in the stretch, and then just got nailed at the end. That was a pretty good performance. The horse that ran him down, too, came back to do some good things after that. So I really liked this horse's debut. His second start came here over this turf course, and he just didn't really run that well in a race that was wired by a 30-1 shot. And this horse just really couldn't get involved that day. He did get to save a lot of ground. I didn't think he had a bad trip. He got to save a lot of ground. He didn't have any traffic in the late stages of that race, but he was just sort of staying on evenly. He didn't really improve from start 1 to start 2, but then he got the long layoff. So maybe something went wrong there. Now he's back. He's a new gelding for this. Chad has good numbers off of layoffs, and this horse did show, I thought, some real potential in his career debut. So I think he's a pretty interesting horse in here, depending on the price. The number 10 is One Bite. He's going to make his turf debut in this spot after going 0 for 5 on dirt to begin his career. Although he did hit the board in 4 of those races. He's another horse returning from a very long layoff in this race. We haven't seen him since February. But he ran okay on dirt, and he's got a little bit of turf pedigree. So we'll see if it makes a big difference for this horse. The sire, McCracken's a new sire, but he is 3 for 17 with his turf router so far. So we'll see how that goes. This dam wasn't very good. She went 0 for 11. She was 0 for 5 on the turf, but she's dropped 3 foals that have won on the grass. And one of those horses overemphasized, not only won on the turf, but he was grade 2 and grade 3 placed on the surface. So half to a pretty good turf horse. The sire getting some results with his turf runners. This horse is off of a layoff here, but maybe he'll improve on the grass. He's going to have to do that to contend here, but maybe he'll be able to. He'll be a price. Number 11 is War Officer. The second for Pletcher. This horse is going to take money in here. His 2 turf starts so far, they went longer with him. And when you watch his races, you can sort of see why he doesn't really have any speed. And he just doesn't really have any acceleration. His race just sort of goes around there at 1 gear, which makes it seem like that's probably why Pletcher wants to go longer distance with him. We'll take a look at the replay of his most recent start here. He's going to wind up settling for 3rd in this race as the favorite, but he got way back off the pace again in this race. He was sort of under a ride from a long way out. You can see him through the stretch. He's game, but he's just sort of going evenly here. He's going to surge up and be closest at the finish. He never looked like he was going to win. He can't quite get second in here. He can't quite get up for second in this race, but he ran fine. I just don't love his running style. He's got the outside post, which means they probably got to take him back and try to make one run in here. So he's going to be dependent on a little bit of pace and then a clean run. He can win here to be sure, but I wouldn't be sold on this horse at a short price. The 12 Champagne Juan is another horse, first time turf in here, and he just feels like kind of a wild card for trainer Christophe Clement because he's got turf pedigree. His career debut on dirt down at Tampa early in the year, he ran fine in that race, sort of on the outside chasing the favored winner on the lead. He couldn't get him, but he was clear second at the end. He did not run well in his most recent start after the layoff on a wet track. That was not a good performance. And so now Clement will make the surface switch with him. And this horse is bred to handle the surface switch. The Justifies have been really good on the turf. This damn well moneyed, not only won 4 times on the turf, but she was a grade 2 winner on the grass. She placed in 2 grade 1s on the grass. She was a really good horse, and she was a turf horse. So maybe the surface switch will make all the difference for this horse. He's got a bad post. But there's a chance that he jumps way forward in this race. We'll see what kind of price he winds up at. He's a wild card, if nothing else, in your Thursday race of the day, the 9th at Aqueduct. Before we get the selections up there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest DRF videos. Here are the picks for the Thursday race of the day. I'm going to stick with the Chad horses here. I put them 1-2. I prefer the number 4, Right to Win. I just think this horse is coming back in the right spot here with the blinkers going on, which is a good move for Chad. I'll take Right to Win on top in here. And I put Chad's other horse, the number 9, Take Me to Jimmy, second. I think that horse is better than he looks on paper. 4, 9, 11, and 5 for me. It's Thursday's DRF race of the day. It's the 9th at Aqueduct, and the approximate post time is 4:10 Eastern. Good luck.